So, Bob Heath, we have shared friendship now for close to 15 years. We've shared agents and finally an acting opportunity together. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, my friend. How about you?
You know how it is. Yeah, we finally did a gig for WellSpan Health. We did a commercial. I just wish that our clips were a little bit longer. It was part of a flowy premise, like a bunch of clips put together to create one flowing narrative. So like we're only on screen for a hot second or two, but we have some pretty visuals. We're staring out over farmland and you're tinkering with a ancient tractor.
Never did get a run-up.
Beautiful sunrise imagery. It was really nice. It's a shame that it took well over a decade to finally have our paths cross in a shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've shared many a libation at happy hours anyway, haven't we?
Yes, we have. We've met. And those are always things I look back on with fondness.
Same here. So I'm trying to rack my brain. Was it when you were in Seattle that you started performing, or was it before that?
I actually started performing in community theater while I was stationed in Germany when I was in the Army. That's where I got booked on it. That was 1981, I think, 81, 82, and around there. Got cast in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I was offered the role of McMurphy, and I turned it down because the job that I was in at the time, I was traveling all over Europe and wouldn't have had the time to devote to the piece. So I asked the director, what have you not cast yet? One of the roles we hadn't cast yet was Dr. Spidey, the psychiatrist. And that's fine, I'll take that. Kind of a brash, ballsy kind of comment for somebody that had zero experience. And came out opening night, and it was a standing ovation, and I said to myself, this is great. I kind of found a home. So for the next 2.5, 3 years when I was in Germany, I did 8 different performances at different shows. And when I moved back to the States, I went to Dover Air Force Base. I would go up to New York every weekend at the HB studio down in Bank Street, just to take a class in technique and to see if I really had the chops and to see if it was something I really enjoyed. And I was fortunate enough to have an instructor by the name of William Hickey, who had just won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in Prizzi's honor. And for me, he was great. I mean, I really enjoyed studying under him for that one day a week, every Saturday. The first day in class, he goes around, everybody, young man, what is your goal? What do you want to do? And everyone says, well, I want to be a star. I want to be rich and famous. And he gets to me, he says, what do you want to do? I said, well, I just want to be a working actor. Character actor's fine. I'm good with that. And he said, you'll probably go someplace. I said, yeah, I'll probably go home after this afternoon. But he came up to me later, a couple of weeks later, and said, you really have, you've got everything focused in the right way. You're not looking to be a star. You're not looking to be rich and famous. And if that happens, it happens. But you're taking it as it comes. And it's like, if you may recall, 10 or 15 years ago when you and I first got together, it's one of the things I said to you after you had booked that thing in Pittsburgh. I said, just take it as it comes, because you may not have that again for 2 or 3 years.
That's been the case. So you were prophetic.
It's funny. This is one of those career fields where you might land a series, and when you land that series, you're a recurring character or you're a supporting player and you're in almost every episode. But when that series ends, you're now looking for another gig. And when I did Veep, Gary Cole, as we're back in the green room, had a great line. He and I were talking, and he said, Bob, I've always thought that an actor's job is to find the next job. And I looked at him and I said, what are you talking about? You work all the time. He goes, well, it may seem that way, but I don't really work all the time. I work when I want to, or I work if I need to. And fortunately for him, he's well known enough that if somebody has a project for someone of his type, his agent says, hey, Gary's available, they probably hire him because he's good. And he fits that mold, the mold for that character. And so he works a lot. But he's right. Our job, your job and my job, is to find the next job. I don't have to be very prophetic.
Yeah, because it creates the illusion when you see someone working, when you see someone in a show, movie, play, whatever, or particularly, I should say, movie or TV show, it creates the illusion that they're around all the time. And the viewer doesn't realize, oh, we filmed that years ago.
Right. That's exactly right.
There is an illusion there.
I take that advice that Gary gave me, and I just keep it in the back of my pocket. And when things get slow, You just got to sort of move on.
Indeed.
Keep trying to find the next job.
Gary Cole, of course, from Office Space. My generation knows that movie, and among many others.
Among many others.
And Bill Hickey. I remember Bill Hickey particularly from the movie My Blue Heaven with Steve Martin and Rick Moranis. He played the old gangster.
And he played, like I said, The Godfather and Prince's Honor with Jack Nicholson.
Yes.
For me, I could not have asked for a better instructor to sort of kick things off with.
Wonderful.
Because he just reinforced in my mind that I had the chops, that I had the talent, if you want to use that phrase, to try to pursue this. Here we are.
To go back, you were performing as an active service member in Germany?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm surprised that they allowed that.
Well, I'm not sure if they still have this, but they had a very active community theater situation there in Europe at the base. And it was a means by which to allow soldiers or dependents to, when you're not working, stretch a leg a little bit. And for me, it was great. I was in a job, like I said, where I wasn't able to get to every rehearsal because I was on the road a lot. But when I was, unfortunately, they didn't need me at every rehearsal because the Dr. Spivey role was relatively small. But it's always nice to come out for opening night and have a standing ovation for a role that was only 3 pages long, maybe.
You made an impression early, I take it.
Well, I think most of those people were friends of mine. So, it was just one of those things.
So the Army looked at theater as, I assume, recreation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they have it under what's called morale and welfare support or something like that.
Morale and welfare support.
It's like an extracurricular activity.
Interesting.
And every military member that gets cast on that understands that if there's a deployment, well, they understand that their job comes first and this thing is secondary. Now, fortunately, we never had a situation where I missed any performance because of deployment, but could have happened. Didn't, but could.
That's a revelation to me that the military would allow quote unquote recreation in that particular way. I wouldn't. It seems like opposing energies, military service and performing in theater. I would never expect the two to gel.
But I'll tell you what, Paul, I have bumped into, since I retired, I've bumped into a slew of either former military or current military folks who are pursuing this field full time, or at least when they're available. There's a good friend of mine down in Washington who's a retired colonel who is acting full time, also involved in theater management, theater company management. So he's really jumped in lock, stock, and barrel. But he's also younger than I am. And I don't have that, I don't have the desire to run a theater company. He does.
Do you think it's just coincidence that military and former military are getting into the theatrical arts, or is there something to that therapeutically?
That's a great question. I think you may have just hit it on the head. I think therapeutics have a lot to do with it. I think it could be a very therapeutic means of release, if you will, where you now have the opportunity to stretch your legs doing something that you either had never tried before or that you either were afraid of or never wanted to try. And like in my case, I got dared to do it. We were at Sunday brunch at the Officers Club in Stuttgart, Germany. There were about 13 or 14 of us sitting around this big table drinking champagne and having omelets and a bunch of blueberry muffins. And somebody, we're all laughing, joking. And somebody's wife said, "You're really very funny. You should do a community theater." I said, "I don't think so." I said, "I did one play in high school and forgot every line after the second line because the guy feed me his line, forgot his line. It was a disaster." I then said, and this is a true story, the only play I would even think about doing would be One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because I'd just seen the movie and just read the book. And as I said that, I opened up the Stars and Stripes, which is the American military newspaper in Europe. And it's like this big bright light came out and hit me in the face and slapped me around a little bit and said, "Auditions, Sunday and Monday, Bad Constadt Hospital, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest." True story.
So the play you wanted to do was there in the paper staring you in the face?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's an honest to God true story. And they all took me down to the audition. And I got offered the role of McMurphy. And like I said a minute ago, I turned it down. Yeah, it was very bizarre how I ended up getting into this line of work.
So it's safe to say that was your God wink.
Yeah, pretty much. Because if that hadn't happened, I would not have done any other shows those other 7 shows while I was in Germany. And if I hadn't done that, I would never have gone to HB Studios in New York and would never have met you.
Mm-hmm.
Would never have worked together by the tractor. So everything sort of builds on each other. It was a quirk in life, if you will.
A quirk that led you down this fabulous road
Exactly.
of interpreting material and being characters.
That's exactly right.
So speaking of building on that, like any adventures from HB Studios or New York City in general?
Any adventures
or experiences that made you a better actor, or whether they be studio experiences in training or gigs that you got?
There was one, and we were, these acting classes, as I'm sure you know, you do scenes with your scene partner in front of the rest of the class. Well, this one actress and I agreed, let's meet at Princeton, have dinner, we'll run through our scene. And it was a scene from Who Was Afraid of Virginia Woolf. We were doing it in the restaurant. People thought we were actually having a big argument. At the time, I didn't know, pull it back, pull back. I wasn't pulling anything back. We were just letting it go.
You were letting it fly in the restaurant.
Letting it fly in the restaurant.
Wow.
So 2 days later, Saturday, we show up at HB Studios, and she's wearing this big hoop skirt. And at one point in the scene, she throws this hoop skirt over my head. Now she's still wearing it over my head. So I'm now covered. I had a martini glass in my hand. Everybody's laughing. She takes the hoop skirt off, and I'm still sitting there with the martini glass in my hand. That was special. Everybody died laughing. Hickey loved it. His comment was, Bob, you stayed in the moment. That was key, because you very easily could have fallen out of the moment the minute that hoop skirt, because that wasn't anything we rehearsed. And I could have been, oh no, what, get out of here, get this thing off my face. And just stay in the moment, sitting with the legs crossed and the martini glass in my hand. That was special. Little things like that are things that I'll always remember.
So it kind of teaches you to be prepared, know the dialogue, know your intention, but to be in the moment too.
Know what it is you're doing. Be in the moment and have fun with it. It's simple.
And you can have fun with it by being prepared, right?
Yeah, if you're not prepared, you're not going to have fun with it, because you're going to come off the set or off the stage, whatever it may be, and you will be incredibly angry at yourself, and you may even lash out at other cast members and blame it on them, which is not a good way to go. So
from New York, would I be correct in saying it was New York to Seattle for you, or was there any spots in between? Well, I was living in Dover, Delaware at the time. I was stationed at Dover Air Force Base. And then from Dover, I went to Virginia, Fort Monroe, Virginia. Was there for 2 years. And then I got out, moved back to Philadelphia. And then Desert Storm came along. Well, back up a minute, moved back to Philadelphia, took a job with the government agency, General Services Administration, as their recruiting specialist. And that's where I met Mike Lemon. I just found an agent who I don't think's alive anymore. He introduced me to Mike. Mike and I just hit it off. I fired the agent, and Mike was starting just to cast me directly in Little Industrial. And, I would take him as long as I could get time off from work. And then, like I said, Desert Storm came. I got recalled to active duty, went to Florida State University to teach ROTC, and was fortunate enough to be able to stay in for almost 6 years till I could retire. And then I moved from St. Louis to Seattle, and then moved back here in 1995. So what was the Seattle scene like? Because from what I've read and heard, in the 90s, Seattle was a place where work was plentiful. Did you have that experience? One of the reasons I selected Seattle was I was going somewhere on United Airlines, and the United Airlines magazine had a huge article about the acting scene in Seattle. There's a TV series being shot there called This Little Town in Seattle. They were doing all sorts of hiring, so they said. Well, by the time I got to Seattle, the ship was folded. Mm-hmm. That was a non-starter. Mm-hmm. But it is a very vibrant, independent film community. At least it was when I was there. And it may still be for all I know. Every now and then, you'll get a project that comes through Seattle or through Portland, had a very active scene as well. So I got an agent in Portland. I had an agent in Seattle. And when they had an audition for me in Portland, I would just take the train down, get off, walk 4 blocks to the agent's office and do the audition. Back, get on the train, come home. And I was fortunate enough to get cast by this casting director in Portland in a show called Take My Advice, The Ann and Abby Story, about Ann Landers and Dear Abby.
and I was auditioning for the role of John Daly, the host of What's My Line. I had just had knee surgery when I went down for the audition 4 days prior. So I had a full leg brace on. I said to myself, well, I can't really hobble into the audition with a leg brace. Well, I'll just take it off and leave it out here. So I hobbled in anyway because I was in pain, but the leg brace was left outside. We do the audition about 3 or 4 times, and the producer, this woman, I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but I said to her, ma'am, just out of curiosity, John Daly's trademark was a bow tie. I'm assuming I'll be wearing a bow tie in this, right? She goes, oh no, this is going to be strictly class. There'll be no bow ties in this production. I then said, excuse me, his trademark was a bow tie. So he's got to be wearing the bow tie. There'll be no bow ties in this production. How many more times I have? Fine, I'm good. Not a problem. I go back to Seattle. My agent calls, says, you booked it? I said, oh, great. Show up for the shoot, go to my trailer. And if I'm lying, I'm dying. There are 4 bow ties hanging up with my wardrobe. And one of the producers came up to me on the set. He goes, you know, you've had a lot of cojones to say what you said to her, but she realized after you left that you were right. What? She just didn't like bow ties.
You spurred her memory.
I guess. Either that or the other guy kicked her in the tail and said, no, he's right. That was his trademark. And working with Wendy Malick was special. She was great to work with.
Wendy Malick, yeah.
I've been looking at, and even the small roles I've had, I've worked with people like Wendy Malick, Sigourney Weaver, Julie Louis-Dreyfus. Just great folks, fun to work with, very giving as fellow performers, and things I can look back on with pride and with a smile on my face.
Speaking of Sigourney Weaver, tell me about the USA series Political Animals experience.
It was called Political Animals. I played Admiral Taft, the commander of the Pacific Fleet. I guess I was in 2 episodes, and would have been more if they had continued the series. And but 2 episodes was fine. It was great to work on. Great group of people, and she is very funny off set, very professional on set, but very funny and very ribald off set. She tells some great stories about her time at I can't.
Anyone you remember in particular?
Oh, it's not the cleanest story, and if I clean it up, it loses some of the humor.
Anything PG-13 related or no?
No.
Okay. I think I remember.
I will probably clean it up, but it won't be as funny.
I think I remember the story.
It would be the groundhog.
Yeah.
But
the Sigourney Weaver groundhog story.
Yeah.
All right.
There was
you want to give it a shot?
I guess one of her classmates at Yale was named Christopher Durang, the playwright, and he wrote a play called Titanic. And this is not about the boat, apparently. And Sigourney Weaver played the role of this woman who had a groundhog in her vagina, and she was feeding lettuce to the groundhog. So she commenced to show us in the situation room. She threw one leg up on the table, how she was feeding lettuce to the groundhog. I could not stop laughing. Millisecond later, the director comes in. Okay, we're back to 1. Bob, we're on you. I'm wetting my pants. I'm laughing so hard. So they got to come and redo a little bit of makeup, and we do the next scene where I'm talking directly to Sigourney, and it was all I could do to keep from breaking character and laughing, because I still had that vision of the groundhog.
She had the guts to tell you this story while you were on set in between takes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we were down for like 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, whatever it was. Everybody, all the principals were in there.
Was anybody else cracking up? Or were you just
Everybody was cracking up. Everybody was cracking up.
Nice.
But it's a fond memory.
Sounds it.
It was a good time.
How about your experience on Veep and Julie Louis-Dreyfus? Anything cool there?
Veep was a great time as well. I got cast the night before. I'm in New York. It was cold. It was quite cold out. So cold that the tracks on the train were freezing. So every train was running late. By the time I got back to my house, it was 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I had a 6 o'clock call in Baltimore. I still hadn't seen the script yet. So I get home, I look at the call times and all this stuff, the directions, and print off the script. And it's a long speech. I'm playing the role of the host of this lunch or dinner. And I'm looking at the script as I'm driving down to Baltimore, trying to memorize it, get down there. And I get to the set. They take me to my trailer and get the wardrobe on and everything, and they take me to makeup. As I'm sitting in the green room, I'm looking over, and here's a big cue card with part of my speech on it. And then everything else under it doesn't look familiar at all.
Mm-hmm.
I had rewritten the speech that night. the night before. I go, well, throw this out.
Unbeknownst to you.
Oh, yeah, unbeknownst to me. They totally rewritten the script, or at least not the script, but that speech. And nobody told me. And the guy says, you're going to need it? I said, yeah, I'm going to need that cue card. Now, there are probably about 75 to 100 extras in this ballroom and some principals scattered in amongst the extras. And the director goes, can you see this, Bob? And he holds the cue card. Yeah, I can see that fine. And he yells at the cue card guy, okay, now start moving back. So the cue card guy now is all the way behind the crowd. Can you read that? I go, no. I said, can I put my glasses on? He said, throw them on. Let's see how they look. So I just did this. I said, are those messing with your lights? He goes, no, we're fine. I said, so am I. I can read that fine. So we knocked that bad boy out, and that was that. But it was a scary couple of minutes when you see, that looks awfully familiar. The rest of it doesn't look familiar at all.
Isn't that the case? I know scary. Scary was for me going down to Jupiter, Florida a couple of years ago for a TaylorMade shoot where I knew I was going to have to hit golf shots in front of professional golfers. And they said, oh, don't worry. You'll be able to warm up on the day on the range, or we'll give you money to go to a local driving range and mess around the night before, whatever you need to do. The day comes, I'm in my wardrobe, I'm in makeup, I'm thrown onto the putting green with a putter I've never used in my life on a green I'm not familiar with no practice. And they're trying to tell me, sink a 25-foot putt with the number one golfer in the world behind your back, watching you. I went from my mind being at ease to I'll be able to practice and warm up to dance monkey dance. You know what I mean? Immediately.
A little bit of putter fact.
Yeah. So I get it. But we're pros. We hunker down, we focus, and we get the job done, don't we?
Get the job done. That's exactly right.
Indeed.
And hope that it comes out the way everybody wants it to.
Our favorite words are moving on, right? We got it, moving on.
Yep.
We like
or
that.
That's a wrap.
Or that's a wrap.
That's also a classic.
Yes, indeed. So you are, I've known you, 15 years now. You're in your 70s and you're still working. I'm curious about where you sense the barometer is in terms of auditions and opportunities for actors your age. Are you, based on how it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, where you've been, where you're at now, is it more, the same, less? What's your perspective in terms of opportunities for you and where you're at in this stage of your life?
That's an interesting question, Paul. And a lot of it, I hate to phrase it this way, but a lot of it centers around COVID and how that is totally demolished, as far as I'm concerned, the audition process. Because I get a lot of auditions, and a lot of them I have to do here in my office. So I'll do 3, sometimes 4 takes, send it on. I have no idea what they're looking for. Sometimes I book it, sometimes I don't. I'll send it through Pete, for example. Pete said, I was outstanding, and don't book it. But as we've talked about many times before, you do the audition, put it behind you. It's up to them. Do they like it? Do they not like it? You have no idea what it is they're looking for. You might be too tall, too short, too light hair, too dark hair, too brown-eyed, too blue-eyed. You never know.
Are you a fan of self-tapes or no?
No. I prefer getting in front of a casting director or the client, do the initial audition, and then they'll say, that was good. Try this. Put a Scottish accent on it or whatever. I hadn't thought of that. And then do it that way.
So you appreciate in-the-moment feedback?
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. What I don't appreciate is knocking out 3 takes, sending it out, and unless you book it, you have no idea. No idea if they liked it, if they didn't like it. What did they like? What didn't they like? I had a situation through one of the local casting directors 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. I got the script a week in advance, had it knocked out. The night before, I get an email. They've changed the script. Here's the new script. So I knocked that out. Throw the old one out of my head. Go to the audition on Zoom. The client goes, yeah, Bob, I think we're going to go with the old script. And I do one of these. Excuse me? The old script? What happened to the script from, you sent last night? Nah, not really happy with it. We're going to go with the old script. You remember, don't you? I go, no, it's gone. So he says, do the best you can. So I did something. And he goes, oh, that was really good. And that was that. But that was, to me, really disappointing in terms of, that was more the client's fault than the casting director's fault, as far as I'm concerned, because the client had no idea what he wanted. So that's one other thing we have to deal with in this business.
And as such, you're dealt with a curveball that you may or may not hit.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like one of the guys, the Phillies just cut a couple of weeks ago, or traded, I guess. who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. That's how I felt.
It can be tough. It can be challenging for sure. And I think in those situations, not just in a curveball situation in an audition, but in any audition situation live, the advice I got from a class with Chaz Palminteri was have a seasoning of arrogance or confidence, if that's a better word for you to digest. Just being like, hey, here I am. This is what I'm offering you. If you like it, great. If not, oh well.
Yeah.
And be on your way.
That's very true. I mean, flashback to an audition you and I both went to in New York, obviously now several years ago, many years ago. I forget the name of the floor, but it was 10 or so different rooms with different auditions going on.
Mm-hmm.
You walk in and you hear, before the door closes, hear the guy go, oh, he's exactly what we're looking for. You go in and do your bit. You come out. I then go in, as I go, well, I guess you don't need me anymore. I go, no, what are you talking about? I said, well, you said that he was exactly what you were looking for. No, come on in. I think you booked it. I didn't.
Was that like 3 of Us Studios in New York? They have all those little studios.
That's exactly right. 3 of Us
floors in building. That happened to me. I was on the receiving end of that once in Baltimore, where I walked in. It was a commercial for a financial investment company. And I walked in, I drove from Philly to suburban Baltimore. I'm in the room. The lights are on me. They held the audition on the sound stage of this production company's office. And it was one of the more intimidating ones because it wasn't just the director and the casting director, but it was the entire client contingent. So there were about 15 people in the room, and with the lights blaring on me, it felt like an interrogation, and I was a prisoner. And I'm decked out after a 2-hour ride in my suit, cufflinks, ties, perfectly half Windsor knotted, everything. So I do my thing, and I'm smiling, and I hear the director go, does anybody have any questions? And I can't see anybody. I just have lights in my face. So it's just blackness beyond the lights. And all I hear is someone say, that's our guy. So instantly, like that, I was cast. And I knew I was cast. But I know that's just a client flexing. Like a casting director would never do that. You would never just throw it out there immediately, especially when you have other people auditioning. It's just it's a respect issue.
Well, exactly.
But ego-wise, it inflates you.
It deflates you in one way, but then when you hear him say, oh, this is our guy.
Inflating, yes.
Yeah. So
it's a shot in the arm.
Cock of the walk, as they say.
Yeah.
Good.
So and that's the rub, isn't it? Like we have exhilarating experiences. We have experiences that are god awful. We book the part. We don't get fitted. We book the part. We shoot it. We're not in the final cut. We go through a callback or two, and we really want it, and we don't book. It runs the gamut, but you have to learn to ride the waves and stay on the surfboard, right?
That's exactly right. You just got to take it as it comes. You know, as you and I have both told this one actress friend of ours, never assume you got the gig because you felt comfortable without audition. And I would say to her, and I think you probably say, I wouldn't look at it from that perspective, because if you don't get it, now you're going to be disappointed and you're going to be deflated. Leave the audition and go on to where you're going. If you're going to another audition in New York, great, go to the audition. If you're going to the train station, don't get lost. Go to the train station and go home. Yeah, it's this is a profession that eats its young, if you know what I mean, where there's no real rhyme or reason as to why casting directors or clients do what they do, or fellow actors do what they do. Their goal, the client and the casting director, their goal is to try to get the right person for that job. And if we have to go through 300 people to find it, great, even though I'm not really sure who I'm looking for, we'll see someone along the way. That's fine. But there's got to be a better way to cut through the chaff, if you will, and just call in the people who you really want to see.
I think that happens depending on what the job is. I think it depends on whether casting and the client are brushing with a wide stroke, or if they know, look, if the client says to casting, I don't want this to be drawn out. We don't need to see 500 people. Give me your top 10.
And I would like to think, I agree with you 100%, but it would be very nice if the client were to say, just give me your top 10 or top 20. I don't need to see any more than that. But that's not what happens. And I think part of it is the casting directors also draw that out because they get more money from the client, from what I've been told. It's out of our hands, Paul.
I guess it comes down to the specificity of a client, knowing what they want or not knowing what they want.
That's part of it.
And casting giving it to them. And hopefully we are the color of paint that goes onto the painting.
That's exactly right. But I would also hope, and I don't think this happens, but I would also hope that the casting directors would say to the client, here are 10 people that totally fit what it is you're looking for. We don't need to go past these. Now, if the client says, no, I'd really like to see more than this, that's a different situation. But I would think most casting directors have a good enough feel for the local talent that they've dealt with over the years that they can make a recommendation to a client. Here are 10 folks I think can do this job and can do it well, and here's who you should look at.
I'm sure that happens. I have no doubt that
I would
happens.
love to think so.
I know I've booked work just off of a recommendation. I'll get the email saying, Paul, are you available for this job? Just let me know your availability.
I think we both have. I have as well. Yeah.
Client would like to book you for X. And I thought, wow, great. Because that means that the years of being professional, of being competent, they pay off. It's like, Here you go. You're bypassing the normal process. Here you go. Here's the gig.
Professional.
Enjoy.
You're easy to work with. You're not a diva. You don't have an attitude.
How important is that, right?
I mean, we both worked with people that are just the opposite. The only thing missing is them demanding a bigger trailer. But if it's a non-union gig, there are no trailers anyway. But
yeah. That's another cool, I wouldn't say a cool experience, but it was an experience I had years ago on a film set where an A-list actor would protest something, whether it was what they were wearing or the scene, and they would not come out of their trailer until they were happy. And that held up the works. And I thought, man, wow, like maybe they're in a different place in the acting world and where they're at in their career. And I looked at that and went, how dare they?
Yeah, I've seen that as well, and I've had the same reaction. Hey, it's like or somebody complaining about demanding smoke pit or wet pit. Come on, you kill it in here. Or a meal penalty.
I wish, situations like that, particularly union jobs, I wish things were just spelled out clear. Here's what happens. Here's your meal penalty. Here's your wet pay, and you're done. If I'm being honest, like 8 out of 10 union jobs I've done, there's always some discrepancy. There's always something where someone goes, oh, we were 8 minutes late for lunch, or a raindrop hit me in the shoulder. Like, I get it. I understand, but is that a hill you want to die on?
Right.
You know what I mean? Do you want to be such a pain in the ass that you're going to be so argumentative about this? I'm okay, fine. You can put in forms and you can do what you have to do with the union, but you're going to get your $12 at some point. But is the casting director going to call you in for the next gig?
More than likely not.
So
word gets back to the casting director that this person has been a total pain.
I mean, I think you have to pick your battles. I really do. And especially with the nickel and dime stuff.
I agree 100%. And it's the nickel and dime stuff that gives a lot of actors a bad name. And sometimes we get painted with a broad brush and gives actors a bad name. But maybe sometimes it's up to us actors to tell the guys who become in a pain, knock it off.
I think, I have to believe that over time, the cream rises. It's like any other job. It's any other profession where talent and affability, getting along with people, that will
easy to work with.
Will take you far. It will keep you going in the business, because who wants to work with difficult individuals in any profession? You
and I had this conversation 14, 15 years ago over a beverage. You were just starting out and you asked me, what kind of people do you like to work with? Or something phrased along that line. I said, well, quite simply, I like to work with people who, 1, like to have a good time doing what they're doing, 2, who are easy to work with, and 3, aren't into themselves. Don't think that it's all about them. And it makes the day so much easier, so much nicer, so much more pleasant. Unfortunately, in this business, we do get folks, and we've both worked with people like this, that feel it, like you said a minute ago, that feel like it's all about them. And sometimes that can make for a very tense set and a very long day.
I think that's the nature of the business. I mean, as far as actors go, the business tends to attract people who are, shall we say, left or right of center.
Oh, yeah.
And
no doubt
you know
about
what
it.
I mean?
I know exactly what you're saying. It's kind of like politics in a way, if you think about it.
Yeah. But again, I think over time, the powers that be are mindful and aware of who can get the job done, who's not going to be difficult. and who's going to be able to not be a squeaky wheel per se. I'm not saying to lay down. I'm not saying to not stand up for yourself, to not have integrity, but to know what's for the greater good, to know when and when you're not being taken advantage of, and to not be looking for things from the perspective of, I'm always the victim in productions and on sets. I think that's important.
A lot to be said for that.
Indeed.
A lot to be said for that.
Well, I appreciate the perspective of your acting trajectory and how it's taken you really around the world. We didn't even get to the Japan movie, but yeah, spending time in Kyoto, I believe, on a production there. Pretty cool indeed.
Sure did.
And it was enlightening for me to hear about how the military at that time allowed you to have theatrical recreation. That was enlightening for me to hear, and that was something new for me to
it's
understand.
Interesting. Somebody said to me, "Why do you think you're doing this?" I said, "Well, first of all, I got dared from the initial after that Sunday brunch, and then I fell in love with it. So I started taking assignments that were more personally enhancing than career enhancing. I mean, I had several West Point classmates of mine who were retired general officers, and we were captains at the same time. This is something I love to do, and I found a way that I could do it on the Army dime, if you will. I figured, why not? What better way to gain experience without having to open my wallet and be broke over time? It was great.
I would too. I would do it in a heartbeat as well. And we all indeed love it. No one's forcing us to be on these sets, right?
It's true.
So if there's a pearl of wisdom that your acting experiences has taught you that you carry through your days, if there's a pearl, what would that be? What can you impart?
Well, there are probably a couple of pearls. One would be, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. And the other would be prepared, keep your sense of humor. Because if you're not prepared, you won't be working long, at least not with that production company. If you don't have a sense of humor, or if you're difficult to work with, you won't be working with them long. Those have carried me through my career.
Preparation and humor.
Exactly. Oh, and one more. Be on time. If nothing else, 15 minutes early.
Early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable, correct?
Exactly right.
There you go. Never forget it, folks.
You heard it here first from Mr. Paul Monte.
Well, Robert D. Heath Jr., I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Paulie. Anytime.
And many more illustrious gigs, and we'll be doing happy hour soon.
I look forward to it, buddy.